Hi, it's me, Andrej. As it happens, I've been riding motorcycles for 26 years. I'm a lucky man because throughout all that time, I've never really had any major problems with it. There haven't been any accidents, no unpleasant incidents on public roads, and I figured that since I've clocked quite a few kilometers, maybe I should share with you how to ride a 125cc motorcycle safely, because I know that many of you ride them and above all want to ride them. And for this purpose, I have the fantastic Suzuki GSXS 125. I really like this bike because as far as 125S go, it's truly top-notch in terms of performance, build quality and those kinds of things. Since this motorcycle isn't actually slow, contrary to what you might think, because you can easily ride it at over 100 kilometers per hour in my opinion, it's worth knowing a few rules that will make getting around easier and simply make us safer. So I'll ride around the city a bit and just tell you something about this topic. And now the question is, how do I get out of here without breaking any traffic laws? The most fundamental and crucial rule that I consistently adhere to, especially when operating a motorcycle, is the unwavering principle that we as riders never inherently possess the right of way. I am well aware that a significant majority of individuals are already quite familiar with the established traffic regulations and the various rules of the road, but this particular mindset is paramount for safety. I know there are situations when we're riding and the sign says we have the right of way. But listen, remember that you're riding a motorcycle that weighs 100, 200 kilos. You absolutely have to contend with much larger and often faster vehicles like cars. So just assume from the very start that you truly never ever have the right of way. I always think of it as a bit of a strategic ninja game, because you simply have to be significantly smarter, more agile and more aware than everything else around you out there on the road, constantly anticipating and reacting to potential hazards on the road. You have to think for absolutely everyone, for every animal and for every obstacle that is in front of you. That's one of the reasons why riding motorcycles is so relaxing, contrary to what you might think, because you don't think about the things that are usually on your mind every day, like work, not work, or all sorts of personal matters, those kinds of things. Oh, thank you, sir. You only think about focusing about riding as well as possible on the motorcycle. So when I ride, I'm constantly, non-stop scanning my surroundings. You know, as I ride, I glance here, I glance there, I glance over there. I'm always kind of looking straight ahead, because that's the most important thing, to look as far ahead as possible when riding a motorcycle, not just at the front wheel, but at the same time, I'm constantly for a split second glancing right, left, right, left, right, left. Oh, you see here, this guy was already getting ready to move off. Oh, and here, he's already braking. You have to pay attention to everything. You can't trust a guy like that who's turning that truck that he won't cut you off. There are all kinds of people on the road, really very different. There are some who really don't like motorcyclists. There are kids who like motor cyclists. Hi! But really there are spiteful people, and they might think, well, I have a big car, he has to yield to me. And for example, they have no imagination that this is really dangerous for us, really dangerous. So no matter what happens, even if you have the right of way, slow down, brake, especially if you see a situation that seems potentially dangerous to you. Here too is a very good example. Look, well, I have the right of way, right? Well, but there's a guy driving, he stopped. No, 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 no. I don't want to have an encounter with that car. So it's better to slow down a bit, size him up, make sure that person sees us, because you can really often tell when someone has noticed you. And that's it. Just watch for that, what's happening here. There are some things here. There's some gunk. And that's how I had my first fall on a motorcycle. Fortunately, without any real damage. Because I was riding and I braked in the middle of the lane. And here, as you can see, oil or not, things will be leaking from the air conditioning now during the summer. So this is also a very important thing. When you're riding a motorcycle, stick to the tracks where car tires go, because that's the place where all that gunk isn't present, because they're constantly being driven over. Notice, I always try to ride along that line where car wheels roll. This is especially important at various intersections, because if you brake hard there, you might end up hitting a patch and your front wheel might slip. You also have to remember that in turns, the surface often changes. Look, there are patches everywhere here, all sorts. One section of asphalt might have more grip, another might have less grip, and you have to keep all of this in mind. If you don't know the road and you don't know what's around the corner, there's no point, and it's not very wise to lean the motorcycle hard and just trust the grip of the tires. You see, it's the same with dirt. Look, there's dirt everywhere here. He got dirt there's dirt, so we go this way. But besides that dirt, there are also these stripes. You see these white lines right here? I have this kind of habit that I always ride between them, and that's the right thing to do, because they can also be slippery, especially when it rains. When it rains, they can turn into a skid plate. And I always, not just when it comes to pedestrian crossings, but even when I'm overtaking, I always keep in mind that you can slip on that stripe. And in turns, on curves, I try not to ride over the white lines at all, even if sometimes I end up cutting a corner a bit. It's just better not to do that. Here, for example, we're approaching a turn, and look, pay attention to the fact that there's dirt here. If you ride over there, it's easier to slip, and in general, this whole asphalt is slippery. This is the city, and there are really a lot of cars driving here, so the asphalt isn't as grippy as on some winding country road where you can, for example, go a bit faster through a turn. Here you really have to have very limited trust in this surface, and personally, when I'm in the city, really, especially after corners are roundabouts, I ride quite slowly. Speaking of riding through corners, there's a place in war so that, okay, it's slippery and uneven. And here there's an unexpected surprise that you might encounter quite often. You look at a queue, at a curve, an overpass, but you think, I'll just go ahead. And then what? Oh, a metal joint. If I were riding much faster here, at this moment my wheels could really slip on that metal. So seriously, if you don't know the area, then try to just ride a little bit slower over it. You see, now I'm riding, the road is full of holes, potholes everywhere, all sorts of bumps. Oh, someone bought themselves some motorbikes. Nice. So I try to just ride a bit slower right from the start. That's the main thing. And secondly, even if I can avoid a pothole, sometimes I'll even lift myself off the seat so the motorcycle can handle it better, so it can absorb the bump more effectively. See, look, here we're riding over cobblestones, bumps, no bumps. Now, this particular motorcycle has really good suspension, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. But if your motorcycle struggles with this kind of thing, remember, you can always, when you hit a pothole, lift yourself off the seat a bit to lighten the load, and additionally, you can absorb the impact with your legs, and that's it. Getting back to handling, look, I always keep my fingers on the levers, just in case, on the clutch and brake. I've just gotten so used to it in my life that if something happens, I always have time to react, to press the brake. It really doesn't get in the way of giving it gas. It doesn't interfere with holding onto the motorcycle. This habit is very easy to develop, and I honestly recommend it. When I brake normally later, depending on what kind of brake you have, the brake on my motorcycle, you can brake with one finger. I usually brake with two. If I happen to ride the motorcycle that has really bad brakes, then I use my whole hand. We're riding now, I have a red light, and again, I won't choose that line to stop, because here there could be some dirt. So just like that, I brake right here and brake smoothly, effectively, and without the stress of losing traction. On motorcycles, in most cases, you brake with the front brake. There are exceptions like heavy cruisers, which have a really weak front brake, and then you use the rear brake quite a lot. But on regular motorcycles, the rule is that you mainly brake with the front brake, because it's the most effective, because the rear is unloaded then, and for example, it's easy to lock it up. However, I'm a proponent of learning how to brake with the rear. Look, now for example, I'm braking a little, just a little, with the rear brake. This is a V Rylite braking, but thanks to that, it's very gentle and smooth, and that's fine. I am a strong proponent of using both brakes. Both brakes? Yes, indeed, both brakes. I know, it might sound surprising. Of course, with a significant emphasis on the front one, because the more you ride and gain experience, the better you will undoubtedly get a feel for both the front and rear brake, and how it profoundly affects the motorcycle in different situations. Then in an emergency situation, you can handle it better. You can simply react better, respond better. It's also important whether your motorcycle has ABS or not, because if it has ABS, then remember that theoretically, if you squeeze the brake lever as hard as you can, the ABS will kick in and you won't lose the front. But sometimes in conditions like today, when it's SL sunny, there's grip, ABS doesn't necessarily improve braking distance. Sometimes it's better to feel the grip yourself of that front wheel and not let it start to slide. If you have those new motorcycles with CBS, meaning without ABS but with a combined braking system, then you know that when you press the rear brake, the front brake is automatically engaged as well. In my opinion, that's not entirely good, because in other bigger motorcycles later on, you don't really have such systems anymore. I mean, well, they do appear, but they don't work as aggressively as in these 125S, the 125S. And in my opinion, these motorcycles don't really teach good habits, but that's nothing terrible. You just have to remember that when you switch to something else, the braking system will work a bit differently. Let me share with you one more valuable tip when it comes to taking corners, and not just corners. I mean, staying calm in a crisis situation, because sometimes it happens that you're riding through a corner, everything's going great, and then sudden, oh, something happens, and you know, your first instinct will be to brake. And that's the worst moment. It's the worst possible time to brake hard, because the motorcycle is leaned over. It doesn't have nearly as much grip as it does when riding straight. So in corners, we try, when if we see something, to not panic, but rather, oh, slow down and try to straighten up. And only when the motorcycle is upright, hit the brakes hard, really hard. If you brake while leaned over, it might just cut out the front and a crash is inevitable. I know it's very hard to stay calm in a critical situation, but that's exactly what your motorcycle is for. It's agile and light, so you can find an alternative path, not just rely on the brakes and possibly lose the front, but for example, slow down a bit and avoid the obstacle. So this is a skill that takes years of practice. Unfortunately, often you need to make a mistake, but it's better if you already know about it now. And what kind of service is that? Military police on motorcycles? Ha! Who would have thought? Oh! And now we come to a key element, which is riding in traffic jams in the city. I try to ride in such a way that I don't ride between cars when they're not stopped. Remember, this is legal. Riding between cars is legal. The law does not prohibit it. What's really important is to ride calmly. I often see, especially people on S-scooters, who really speed between cars. Because look how much space I have. After all, I can go. Listen, at any moment, absolutely at any moment, someone might think, oh, that lane on the right is faster, so I'll just quickly jump over there, right? So really, 20 kilometers per hour here is a speed that's already fast enough to get through a traffic jam efficiently. And notice, once the cars have started moving, I prefer to get in here behind these cars, and that's it. Only when they stop do I prefer to get in. Well, unless, as you can see, this gentleman is letting me in very politely, thanks. And we're rolling along slowly. And now pay attention, this is very important rule that hardly anyone in Poland really follows or respects, but it's very important in Europe. If we are filtering through traffic and there are more than 2 lanes, like in this case we have 3, all right? It's good that I'm still driving like this, because I got a bit carried away talking. We always filter between the far left and the middle lane. Why? Because it keeps us from getting in each other's way. You see, people here are often really nice and give me the right of way. If it turned out that I was riding the way I am right now and someone wants to give me the right of way and someone else is filtering on the other side, then that person would automatically cut them off. And that's a super dangerous situation. So if you see someone weaving back and forth between one lane and another, it's better to hang back a little, wait out so there's no problem. The same goes for this situation. Now pay attention. I could theoretically pull up to the pole position, move forward, past all the cars and be first at the lights. But really, what for? I only have a 125cc engine. It's possible that this BMW accelerates to 100 faster than my motorcycle. So if you see already, you are at the lights and you see that with the next change of lights, you'll definitely get through, then why bother pushing your way through? You already know. Just let it go. You'll get through anyway, and you've already saved a lot of time at this point. Yeah, this guy has a slightly faster motor vehicle and he is pretty sure that, and this one also has a slightly faster one. He's also confident that if he accelerates, he'll be the first to go. Motorcycles, and it's going to be a race, and there always has to be a little shy race. Oh, you see, and oh, that BMW is pulling away from me, so I did the right thing. And then click and move over to the middle or right lane so I don't block traffic. Because remember, even though we might be driving at the speed limit, let's say in big cities like Warsaw, people here really drive their cars very fast, and it's important not to get too crazy on your 125. Just ride at your own pace and that's it. And don't try to be the fastest motorcycle every time, because you might actually come across a much faster one, but the car instead behind you. Oh, see, here comes that situation. There's a guy riding with a passenger on a white motorcycle, and here, as you can see, oh, on a tracer. And if that guy on the tracer had gone a bit further and someone decided to yield to the other guy, that could already cause some kind of problem. So I'm curious whether the guy on the tracer will join us on this lane, because there's already one guy behind us riding through the corridor, or not. So really, I want you to keep this in mind. This is also a very important thing. Notice as I'm pulling out here, there could be a motorcyclist riding the motorcyclist. In fact, there is one coming. So be careful when changing lanes. For example, when you're pulling out from some road and you have to cross, oh, what a crash, you have to cross one lane and you want to get into that corridor for overtaking cars. This is also a really tricky thing, and remember that, you know, motorcycles are everywhere, and there's nothing worse than in a traffic jam, two more. So cyclists just get knocked down simply by trying to take advantage of their privileges. Machines. Oh, also remember that it's always worth being a polite motorcyclist. If you see a lady who wants to cross, it's worth stopping. Then people will think that maybe those motorcyclists are actually all right. I also wanted to touch on a very important topic, which is culture. The culture of motorcyclists and the culture of drivers. Because as you noticed earlier, I was riding and people were moving over for me. Tea was very nice, pleasant, but be aware that eventually you come across people who will be frustrated by the fact that you're riding while you're riding and they're stuck in traffic. There are people who will cut you off, play tricks, really unpleasant ones, and it can really raise your blood pressure. And here again I appeal to let that pressure rise only for them, not for you, because once again you are on a motorcycle and they are in a car. All it takes is for them to want to push you off the road. Once even a taxi driver tried to push me off, and well, things could get a bit rough. I always just stay calm about it. If someone yells at me, gets angry, honks their horn, I just shrug my shoulders and that's it. That's their problem, not mine. So I'd also like you all to try to react this way, because I often see motorcyclists waving their arms, banging on cars like, why did he just cut me off? But listen, the simple truth is, the fact that we get to pass through is our privilege. A car is not obligated to let us through, and that's it. So we have to be a bit smarter, like I said before. We have to be smarter than other road users. We just have to rise above it, maintaining our composure and understanding if someone gets upset, have to stay calm, because getting worked up is completely unnecessary. But I often see someone revving their engine, doing something, shouting over there. Yeah, on those motorcycles, like some huge biker gangster, you know, coming back to manners. Also, oh Jesus, how much I dislike, and again I'm coming back to this, I was young too, and I won't say how young, but revving the motorcycle in traffic jams. Because it's often the case, a situation where cars are standing still, someone can't get through, so they rev the engine, you know, growling with their exhaust so people will let them through. Because after all, I'm a motorcyclist, you have to let me pass. Like I said, that's not true. But remember that in a traffic jam there can be normal, calm people who are trying to relax, or they have a sleeping child, or another child who's not sleeping, but will simply get startled and quite scared by a very loud and unexpected motorcycle. Why would anyone do that? If someone genuinely and kindly lets you through, that's absolutely great. If not, well, that's just precisely how it is. You'll definitely have to patiently wait. You certainly won't waste much of your precious life, really. Generally speaking, when I think about riding a motorcycle, the key to success is to ride smoothly, not to make sudden movements, because that will immediately destabilize the situation. You can do it because it's a light motorcycle, but it immediately destabilizes the bike and negatively affects traction. Riding a motorcycle is a bit like skiing, you know. It has to be smooth, graceful, gliding, not jerky and abrupt, because then you don't actually go fast at all. We lose speed, we slow down a bit, not braking every time so that the ABS kicks in right away. But rather we try to gently finesse the brake lever. Look, see? And here is a very nice person who let me squeeze through in the traffic jam, and it's worth thanking him. You don't have to thank everyone, because I understand that when you ride, thank you ma'am, when you're just starting out, you might not feel too confident yet on a motorcycle, and we're riding between, as you can see, some pretty expensive cars, so really no one will be offended if you don't wave back at them. The gentleman is going, the lady is going, or not. No one will be offended if you don't wave back at them. Because remember, motorcyclists often greet each other. You've definitely seen this before. No one will be offended if you don't wave back. No one will be offended if you don't thank someone for letting you through in a traffic jam. It's better to just be confident in how you ride. You can just nod your head. And everywhere in Europe, for example, motorcyclists greet each other by sticking out their left leg or right as a way to say hello, because that way you don't have to let go of the handlebars. Another pretty interesting topic is turn signals, because I personally have the problem that I often forget to turn them off, and that's a bit dangerous. Because if we don't turn off the turn signal, it might happen that someone driving in front of us thinks, oh, he's not turning here, so bam, I'll pull out. And that can be really dangerous. I've already kind of trained myself so that when I'm riding a motorcycle, I just press here from time to time the switch. It really works for me automatically now. That I just ride and click. I press it, click. I press it, I don't even think about it anymore, and that's it, and I'm done. And that's all that comes to my mind at the moment. You know, it's like this, that there are many things I no longer even think about because they happen automatically, and I would like for them to happen that way for you too. That you ride and you don't have to focus on certain things, that they just happen reflexively. You won't learn these reflexes when it comes to braking, downshifting, accelerating without a lot of riding on a motorcycle. You can't cheat motorcycle hours, and I encourage you to ride as much as possible, to ride as much as you can in friendly conditions, to visit racetracks, for example. Maybe about that. I'll talk about that another time, maybe with a more sporty motorcycle, but maybe also with a 125cc. Really, the more you ride a motorcycle, the better you'll be at riding it. The cars are just driving along, and I brake and look in the mirror to see if by any chance someone behind me isn't speeding up because they want to pass. But that's just a general rule. So I hope that all these tips I've given you will be useful, that you'll put them into practice. They're not just for motorcycles in the 125cc class, 125, but also for scooters and generally all two-wheelers you ride. So remember, attention, focus, don't trust others, and grip, grip, grip. That's the most important thing, above all. If you like what you see, keep watching us and read the magazine, because in the magazine we write about cool motorcycles for you, and cool people and cool events. So I invite you and wish you a great season. And I think that's about it for all my wisdom that has allowed me to ride motorcycles for so many years and enjoy them. So remember these few basics of rules, like limited trust towards everyone on the road, respecting traction, and starting off with smooth, gradual, gentle, calm riding, and then only then gradually increasing your speed. And if you stick to all of this, trust me, riding a motorcycle is not dangerous at all. It's purely enjoyable. So if you like this video, if you found it useful in any way, we invite you to watch our other productions, and above all, to read our magazine and our website, because there we write for you about fantastic motorcycles, even more fantastic people, and many truly interesting places and exciting events to visit and experience on your bicycle. So that's all for now. Please take very good care. That was me, Andrzej, speaking to you, and I hope to see you again sometime very soon. Goodbye for now.